Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the very first virtual annual members meeting of the UCSC Arboretum and Botanic Garden. I'm Susan, president of the board, and there are over 100 people with us this afternoon. And while we're not in the Arb enjoying all the usual great food and drink, I think you're going to find this meeting really interesting, if not quite as social. We're going to be hearing from Martin and Katie, of course, and we'll be voting on the slate of board members for next year. We'll also be hearing from Rick Flores about how the Arb is working with the Amamutsan tribal band, descendants of the people who once called this land their home. To that end, I would like to ask you all to set aside your phones or any other distractions as I share with you the land acknowledgement that was developed in partnership with the Amamutsan band chairman and the Amamutsan relearning program at the UCSC Arboretum. It reads, "The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswa-speaking Yupi tribe. The Amamutsan tribal band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma." Thank you. Well, it's kind of an understatement to say that this year has been nothing short of extraordinary. Not at all what we thought the beginning of the Roaring '20s was going to look like. It's been full of stress, disappointment, illness, fire, and more. Those of us on the Arboretum board had a lot of great plans for reaching out into the community and raising our profile in the region, and all of them were canceled. So I'm really pleased to say that this spring, all the members of the board enthusiastically signed up for another term, except of course for Elizabeth Evans, who got off the board because she just had a baby. So she has special dispensation. Those great folks who are again running for the board are Jan Begenzon, Bill Bischoff, Ferd Burkholz, Phil Dundas, Marisa Gomez, June Heaton, myself, of course, and I'm really happy to say that two more amazing people have joined the board this summer, both of whom I had the great pleasure of meeting in my California naturalist training class that we took there at the Arboretum a few years ago. Emma Usat brings all kinds of event and tech experience, and Aidid Medina is a poet and resident of Fresno. So that's the slate of candidates for the board, and the polling function is the way you'll vote. That's going to be activated now for a minute or two, so go on there and vote. And I think I can vote too. All right. As many of you probably know, we also have a silent auction with some really great art, science, and adventure packages. So be sure to bid and bid often. Check the bid and bid it back up. So the link is going to be shown on your screen too. Now, before I turn this over to Martin, I want to share a word from Aidid Medina. Aidid gets over here to Santa Cruz and to the Arb as often as she can. And last week, she sent me a video she made, something that I just call a love letter to the Arboretum. We're going to show a part of it to you now, and then we'll run the whole thing at the end of the program today. So I really hope you stay tuned for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Aidid Medina.
I'd like to close off with a poem that I wrote specifically for the hummingbirds here in the Arboretum. And I know some of you will probably identify with some of these feelings. I need a day to chase hummingbirds and walk through rows of marigolds. I need a day of banksia flowers and ocean waters. My shoulders and thoughts crumble for wanting this, eternal for wanting this, in flesh and bone. There is a white hummingbird in your garden that makes pigments his feathers cannot keep. And there is a woman who makes love she cannot touch. In the plants of the arboretum, I am lying on my belly and on my heartbeat. I turn over on my back in between tall stalks of orange and yellow blooms, these fresh green hallucinations of conversations we have never had are crawling all over me. These, like the hummingbirds, are looking for the sweet parts to drink. This is the perfect ground. I feel footsteps approaching, footsteps departing through my spine. I am watching the sky for a blur, ghost bird, for a sign of you in any of these gardens, anywhere in these in between. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you visit often.
Thank you, Ideed. We're now going to close the vote, and I'm going to turn the program over to Martin for his State of the Arboretum address. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will try to get them answered. Martin, it's all you.
All right, is my background slide up? There we are. Great, thanks very much. Thanks, Susan, thanks, Ideed. I'd like to welcome you all here today. It's been a long year and it's not open yet, and I'm very pleased that you were able to join us online. For many of you, the Zoom experience is just another trial to get through, but it's becoming more and more widespread, just as the pandemic is even now. So against that backdrop, I'd like to first go over what our accomplishments have been over the last year, and give credit where it is due, and hopefully I will, if I miss anybody's name, I will make up for it. But it is very important for everyone to recognize that our staff, our students, our volunteers, and our board members have all been focused on the health of the Arboretum and what we can do to sustain it and improve it. The Arboretum has really accomplished a lot physically in the last year as far as improvements. When Tom Sauceda retired over a year ago, he had made a great start on renovating the New Zealand garden. Rick Flores has kept that up with great student and volunteer labor, and New Zealand is transformed. It is very walkable, very pretty, and one should really take that loop. It's a pity that the deer fence seems to put people off, but once you go through that fence, you're in a whole different vegetation zone, and it's definitely worth a visit. South Africa has had a couple of new additions. There's a new South African succulent garden. For those of you like me who are succulent aficionados, it's incredible, and even in the few short months those things have been in the ground, they're doing spectacularly well. So we've tried to divide the African things, the euphorbias and the aloes, from the North, Central, and South American things, the cactus and the agaves, although they, of course, are representative of convergent evolution in a big way. The California gardens, both the entry garden under the direction of Linda Anderson and Rick Flores again, looks wonderful. We're cleaning up the parking lot and redoing the parking lot. Stay tuned for much more on that. And meanwhile, out back, Brett has built rockeries and walls, planted many new specimens, and the California Conservation Gardens are worth a visit. If you haven't been out there since before the pandemic closed down, you absolutely have to come out and walk through the back gate to the California Conservation Garden. The Australian garden is beautiful as ever. Some extensive pruning has started lifting some of the shrubs off the ground, and the specimens look wonderful. And we're going to embark on a rather ambitious project this winter as soon as the rains come, trying to fill in some of the empty spaces and plant out some of our mother plants so that we'll fill in the gaps and make the beds a little more whole again. So that's very exciting as well. The succulent garden keeps spreading thanks to Linda McNally, Christine Alterman, many volunteers, And for those of you who are into succulents of all kinds, we now have them up the hill across the dam, alongside Nori's, the new South African one, and of course the succulent garden itself. Absolutely amazing. You have to see it. The aroma garden, I'm looking for people who want to commit to the aroma garden and the succulent garden to take it on as a personal project. We need help in the garden. And if you have a specialty interest, we're really happy for you to take some ownership and step up for that. So talk to me or Katie if you're interested. The domes, the Future Garden Project, we'll be putting out some news releases. We're finally going to start the projection of what future vegetation communities would look like with California native plants moving through the landscape as the conditions change. So all that will be happening. Nori's has been expanded. The sales area outside has been tripled and it looks great. We're doing outdoor sales now for the nonce. We are allowing very limited indoor shopping, but we're putting things out. We've got a new tent. So the shopping experience is back. It's only Thursday through Sunday, limited hours, but it is safe. You can still do remote pickups on plant orders if you wish to buy. So Nori's has really excelled. Finally, our biggest project is the ongoing renovation of the nursery area, and we've doubled our growing space and our table area. We're finishing up the last touches now, and it's absolutely revolutionized production. Linda McNally and Christine Alterman are churning out plants like you cannot believe. And of course, we're still very fortunate to have donations from some of the Watsonville growers. So altogether, things are looking good. People are saying how fresh the garden looks even after a long, hot summer with no rain in sight. We're installing new directional signs around the Arboretum. We've added benches, and altogether, the visitor experience is being enhanced. Thanks to generous donors, Joanna Miller, Kathleen Rose, we have a new tractor, a new work mule, a new pickup, and so our vehicles are finally functional and we're not driving to the garage all the time. So it's really important to thank our gracious donors for in-kind as well as for cash gifts. Dozens of volunteers are returning to the Arboretum. We're doing social distancing, obviously, and being very careful, but it is safe to come if you're out in the garden. Distancing is fine, not a problem, and we hope to see more of you coming out. A lot of you have cabin fever, I know, as we all do, from sitting around wishing we could go out and do something safe and healthy and rewarding, and coming up to the Arboretum is one of the best things you can do. Student workers have continued, although we are now faced with trying to reduce our student workload. I'll get to that in a second. So the experience of the Arboretum has never been better. It looks great, a little dusty right now, but the rains should come and wash that clean. We need you to come out and renew your appreciation, and hopefully absence has made the heart grow fonder and you'll come back ready to see it through new eyes. The board also has been working in new ways, trying to pull together community support to bring our message to the public, to work with media, and also to simply make more friends and increase visitation. So the good news is we look better than ever, we're functioning well. But the downside is, given the COVID shutdown, which is more than 5 months of complete shutdown, we crept back into opening the gardens and doing some remote sales. We have not yet reopened for indoor venues or rentals. So our revenues are down severely for the year. That coupled with the loss of income to the university system itself has brought about a crisis, financial crisis that we are all obliged to deal with. And so the picture is grim, and not to beat it too much, but I would like to explain to you a little bit how we got where we are. We are designated a self-sustaining unit of the university. That is, we have no operational or salary support directly funded. We have some physical support but we still pay for all the services from campus that we use. So we are required to pay for janitorial, for maintenance, and for things that we can't do ourselves, and to use university contractors or staff to do things like utilities that we can't manage. So we spend a lot of money back to campus to help us do things that once upon a time were subsidized by the university. But since 2008, we have been totally unfunded. Again, no salary or operational support. And this is really difficult for me because when I talk to people about the Arboretum's financial situation, the immediate assumption is that because we're part of the university, we're supported. But the truth is we are not. And it's awkward for me to explain, especially to donors, that the university that values us, that uses us for teaching, for research, for outreach, for a community emblem, does not in fact support us in a positive way. So that means we are obliged to make up the shortfall, and we do have our endowments, our memberships, our donations and gifts. What we bring in annually is not sufficient to operate. Even now, with 3 retirements that are unfilled, a development director, 2 curators in the field, we have 3 positions unfilled, and there is now a hiring freeze. We won't be able to fill those, and now we're also being asked, as are most units on campus, to reduce our employee hours and even to contemplate layoffs. So even though we've been struggling along and getting work done, we are now facing a further reduction in workforce, and we've already got the reduction in income from our gifts, our sales. And of course, with people not being able to come for months at a time, memberships dropped off, membership renewals dropped off. And so altogether, we are facing a very bleak coming year because next year's budget is based on this year's financial performance. We need more members. We need more members. A couple of thousand is great. We've done a great job in the last couple of years, but we really need tens of thousands. Santa Cruz is a unique place, and the Arboretum is a unique institution offering more than I think our local residents recognize. People come from around the world and are astonished by our collections and the beauty. So we have a mission that we're trying to carry out. It's not just horticulture, it's not just botanical science, it's not just community outreach. We are trying to present a holistic presentation of man in harmony with the environment, what we plant, how we care for it, how people interact with the landscape. That's our job, but we need help in doing it. What can we do? I don't want to throw cold water on anyone, but so often we get very, very helpful advice of people telling us what we ought to be doing: more programming, new education programs, new member perks, new classes and seminars and workshops. But they don't seem to realize, giving me this helpful advice, that we need staff to do that. We don't have the staff to do that. We can't do programming out of thin air. And when it comes down to it, our basic default mode is keeping the collections alive, keeping the labeling and maintenance of the collections from a scientific point of view. You can't cut it off. It's like having chickens. You can't shut it off for a year and then come back to it and expect everything to be well. So we are in a very, very tight situation. And we really need all of our members to think of themselves as ambassadors. You're ambassadors. Having a membership is great. We welcome you. We want more memberships. But I plead with you, every year or two, increase your level of membership. Increase your giving. Think about friends that you could bring up there. Please, as ambassadors, bring your friends and family to the Arboretum. Let them experience it. Give membership for Christmas, for holiday gifts. There's nothing better for somebody who has too many things than a gift to the Arboretum, which is a gift of peace of mind and natural beauty. So we are facing staff reductions. We don't know what is going to happen in the next year, but we need explicit support from our members and from the general community. We need corporate sponsorships from over the hill. We need more donations, hopefully more bequests to build our endowment. Our endowment has doubled in the last couple of years, but all those sources of income are not sufficient to keep us solvent. And so I do not want to think of the eventual consequence of not being able to come within spending within our level of income. At that point, we would be able to do very little other than keep things watered and barely trimmed and more or less cease all other activities. So this is a desperate plea. Please, as our members, please think of ways that you can bring more people, bring more interest, and bring yourselves to the Arboretum and demonstrate that we are a viable concern and that we deserve another 55 years. And speaking of 55 years, anybody who owns a house or any kind of property knows that there is maintenance. And at 55 years, structures, pipes, wires, everything needs to be looked at. All of those things are coming due for us, and we're unable to keep up with the need. So we need you. I'm pleading with you. We need you to support us, to come to the gardens, just to be there and help us through, and think of yourselves as community ambassadors. And with that, I'll turn it back to Susan. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me or come in and talk to me in the office. I'm always open for new ideas, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. If there are any questions for Martin, at the bottom of your screen, there's a thing that says Q&A. So you can type in a question for Martin or for Katie, who I'm about to introduce to you now. Katie Cordes, most of you know as the volunteer coordinator, but because of all the financial constraints that Martin was just talking about, she's doing about 600 or 700 more jobs too. So Katie, talk to us. What's happening up there for you?
Hi, thank you for that introduction, Susan. So yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the volunteer and membership programs, which are my focus these days. As Susan said, I am juggling a lot, but I'm enjoying really diving in deep to the volunteer and membership programs. So I'm going to read to you, and I'm going to try not to be too monotonous, but be patient, please. So our volunteer and membership programs provide different yet equally essential support for the Arboretum. And as a member, as you know, you can visit any day of the week year-round and know that you are in a safe and beautiful outdoor space. Particularly during these times, there are many reasons to visit the Arboretum. Some people come just to relax, others to breathe the fresh air, some for learning about the plants from climates like ours here on the Central Coast, or to study for school or for just personal enrichment. Others come for strolling with a family member or walking by themselves in a safe, tended garden. Some come to sit on one of our many benches to contemplate, to read, to space out, daydream, or even to work remotely. Yes, you can do that here. It's pretty cool. Over the years I've been working here at the Arboretum, I've come to realize how relaxing birding and satisfying birding can be, and a great way to feel more interconnected with the world all around us. And as you know, the Arboretum has an abundant amount of bird activity, perhaps more than anywhere else in this area. I'm not sure on that, but it seems like it. And particularly for hummingbirds, for songbirds, and birds of prey. Next slide, please, Marisa. Thanks. So speaking of the birds, a wonderful, relatively new benefit for both members and volunteers are our monthly early bird at the Arboretum Days, held now on the third Saturday of each month. Over the past few months, we have had a dedicated number of you join us at dawn to welcome the daylight and wake up early with the birds. When I've asked folks for their primary motivation for coming to the Arboretum so early, some of the things they have said are for taking photos, for walking in the gardens, for birding, of course, to get out of the house, and into nature, or just to sit quietly and enjoy the peacefulness. And though we are not able to offer this just yet, we are hoping and planning a similar member and volunteer benefit for evenings in the Arboretum, which should be really fun. Perhaps even the occasional moonlit tour or stargazing sessions, but that's a pipe dream at the moment. Not just yet. So next slide, please. Actually, I think if you would, did I mess up? No, there we are, sorry. So you all may be wondering, and Martin already alluded to this, people are volunteering again, and we are very grateful for this. All of our current volunteer activities are outdoors with masks and social distancing, physical distancing. Now and always, our volunteers provide tremendous support, needed support for the Arboretum. We have about 50 active volunteers currently spread out amongst the various gardening groups alone, who provide absolutely essential support to the gardens. Active groups right now are the Kiwi Garden Club, who tend to the New Zealand garden, the Natives First, who tend to the California Entrance Garden, the Succulent Group, who tend to the succulent and cacti garden, in addition to crafting beautiful wreaths, succulent pumpkins, and dish gardens that you can all buy at Nori's Gift and Garden Shop. The Aroma Garden Group is actually a duet right now, soon to be a trio of volunteers. The Conservation Garden Group, who tend California natives from seedlings to full-grown shrubs in the Native Plant Program. And the World Weeders, who tend mostly to Australia and the South African gardens. This means we have at least 100 extra hands tending to the gardens for 2 to 3 hours every week, or in other words, about 150 hours per week of donated time and labor. And we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'd love to double that. Almost all of the groups we accommodate can accommodate more volunteers right now. So please let me know if you're interested in trying any of them out. In addition, we also have Nori's Gift and Garden Shop, where 6 amazing volunteers are taking turns working a 4-hour solo shift, completely outdoors, Thursday through Sunday each week. And it's been very successful. People have been buying plants like crazy, and it's wonderful. We have a steadfast and so creative group of dried flower volunteers who have been busy crafting from home and at the Arboretum, creating beautiful one-of-a-kind wreaths that are now being sold already at the Arboretum in place at Nori's Gift and Garden Shop, in place of our annual Gift and Wreath Show, which unfortunately we can't have, but we're going to spread it out over the whole season. Our dedicated board members are volunteers too, and they regularly meet by Zoom these days to determine how to support the Arboretum virtually, like organizing this meeting today. Thank you, board. We also have a few talented volunteers working remotely, helping us with plant database and plant labeling projects. Thank you, Mike Clark. Next slide, please. We also have our fabulous propagation volunteers providing vital support tending to plant cuttings, transplanting, and weeding the many hundreds and hundreds of plants that we then sell at the gift shop or that we plant out in the gardens. Linda Lane also assists in with the nursery managers in the sometimes daunting process of keeping our plant inventory accurate and up to date. Next slide, please. Other volunteers donate their time and expertise by welcoming visitors to the gardens, helping them get oriented and answer their questions like Ferd Bergholtz is doing here, pre-COVID, of course. Additionally, Ferd and several other friends of the Arboretum take a wide variety of exceptional photographs and generously allow the Arboretum to use their photos for our marketing and communication projects. And here are just a few examples. So in conclusion, though we cannot resume any of our indoor volunteer opportunities like the library or any organized group activities like tours just yet, we're so grateful to be able to safely engage volunteers outside in the gardens. Please accept a huge, heartfelt thank you from the entire staff for all the time and the love that you share with the Arboretum. We couldn't do it without you. And to all of our members, if volunteering is not something that you have the time or means to do, please know that we appreciate you equally as much for supporting us and through the Friends of the Arboretum membership program. On the other hand, if any of you have had your interest piqued by this presentation, please contact me anytime and we can talk about how you could get involved. So thank you again, everybody, for attending, and I'm going to pass it back to Susan now.
All right, wonderful, Katie. Thanks so much. Again, if anybody has any questions, by all means, jump in there in that Q&A spot. Now, I'm really pleased to introduce you to Rick Flores. Now, Rick is the Director of Horticulture and is the steward of the Amamutzen Relearning Program here at the Arb. Rick has worked at the Arboretum for over 20 years and holds both a bachelor's and a master's degree in environmental studies from UCSC. His professional experience at the Arboretum is with California native plants, but he currently works in other gardens as well, like everybody else, helping to keep it all together up there. As steward of the Amamutzen Relearning Program, Rick fosters the relationship between the Amamutzen tribal band and the Arboretum, oversees educational programming, and helps develop displays of culturally important native plants in addition to fundraising and grant writing. Today, Rick will be talking about the genesis of the Amamutzen Relearning Program and where it is today. If you have questions, just jump in there in that Q&A spot. Now, Rick, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'll leave it at that, and I'm going to share my screen right now to give you a slideshow. So today I'm going to be talking briefly about, how the relearning program started, where it is today, and where we see it going in the future. So the relearning program started in 2009. We were introduced to the Amamutzen tribal band through a mutual friend, Lucio Ramirez, who sited his sweat lodge at the Arboretum. And so that's how we got introduced. Lucio already had a relationship with the Amamutzen and had worked with them for a few years prior to us meeting them. And so we held, several initial meetings and conversations with the tribal council to discuss ways in which the Arboretum could collaborate with the tribe. And in those meetings, Chairman Lopez talked about how, because of the way colonization unfolded here on the Central Coast, the tribal members had lost knowledge pertaining to plants and ethnobotany and wanted to relearn. And so that's how the name Relearning Program came about. We used to call it Relearning Garden, but that was pretty confusing to a lot of people because it was like a garden within a garden. So just to introduce to you the Amamutzen Tribal Band, for those of you with us who do not know who they are, as was read at the beginning in the land acknowledgement, the Amamutzen are the descendants of the tribal groups who were taken to Mission Santa Cruz and Mission San Juan Batista during Spanish colonization of the coast. Today, there's about 800 enrolled members within the tribe. But unfortunately, many tribal members do not live in this territory anymore. During the early 1900s, there's a large movement of tribal members into the Central Valley, where they have remained today. And as I'm sure most of you know, this is a very expensive place to live. They do not have the economic resources at the moment to move. But having said that, they're working hard today to revitalize their culture through the relearning of traditional ecological knowledge and native stewardship practices. So when most people today, when I speak of the relearning program, what comes to mind is our garden areas. And this map shows a map of the garden, the kind of tan color there, that's our California conservation gardens. And so when we first started talking with the tribe, they gave us a list of plants that are culturally important to them, and we've been doing our best to incorporate them into the California Conservation Gardens. And the tribe is welcome to come to the Arboretum and harvest and tend native plants as they see fit. As mentioned previously by Katie and Martin, Brett Hall, who is the director of the Native Plant Program, has been doing a lot of great work in the conservation gardens, along with Native Plant Program students, as well as Linda Anderson, who runs several volunteer programs within the Native Plant Program. And so in the early days, back in 2011 to 2014, you know, we held a lot of what we called work and learn gatherings. And these were really great ways for the tribe to relearn. But it also brought community members and tribal members into the same spaces so that, you know, people could get to know each other and collaborate with each other and as well. We held several of these in the beginning. We taught everything from basket weaving to fire making to acorn processing and grass seed processing. So they were really well attended and well-loved events. And then in 2014, the Amamundsen founded the Amamundsen Land Trust. And you can view the Amamundsen Land Trust as you know, the vehicle by which the Amamundsen used to collaborate with all the different organizations and agencies that they currently work with. In addition to the Arboretum, the Land Trust works with California State Parks, Pinnacles National Park, the Bureau of Land Management for Chitoni Coast Dairies, Pie Ranch, and also state parks as well. And so all of these collaborations and projects are kind of contained underneath the umbrella of the Amamundsen Land Trust. And at the heart of, you know, the Land Trust is the Native Stewardship Corps. And this is a group of tribal members who come to the coast weekly to engage in projects of the Amamundsen Land Trust. Currently, they are working to restore Kuroste Valley to what it may have looked like prior to contact. And so within the Amamundsen Land Trust, there's three main focuses. There's conservation and restoration. There's indigenous stewardship. This is a picture of tribal members starting a fire at a cultural burn up at San Vicente Redwoods. And there's also research and education. And so moving forward with the Amamundsen Relearning Program and speaking with the tribe, you know, the Relearning Program really can help the Amamundsen Land Trust with research and education. And there are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that I'm not sure our members or the public know about in terms of our collaboration with the tribe. So for instance, you know, for the last several years, I've given numerous guest lectures to undergraduate courses here at UCSC about the Amamundsen Tribal Band and traditional ecological knowledge. And then in 2019, we received a very generous donation from an anonymous donor to create an Amamundsen ethno garden near the entrance of the Arboretum in this space here that already has this interpretive display about the Relearning Program. We had collaborated with the Land Trust and the Native Stewardship Corps, came up with the plant list. The funding also provided money to hold another work and learn gathering as an opening to the garden. We discussed with the tribe which teachers they would like to bring in and what they would like. And we were well on our way to making this happen in 2020. And then as everybody knows, unfortunately, the pandemic hit and everything closed down, but the monies is still at the Arboretum, and this is still something we plan on doing with the tribe. And this area here is a fairly small area near the entrance of the Arboretum. And we're going to use this garden to call attention to the larger project of the California Conservation Gardens that I showed you a map of at the beginning. A lot of people, when we first started talking about the Amamundsen Relearning Program, assumed that there would be a space at the Arboretum that just had ethnobotanical plants. But the California Conservation Gardens are divided into plant habitat types. So the cultural plants are dispersed within those habitats. But here in this small garden at the front will be an ethnobotany garden where people can come and learn about the ethnobotany of the Amamundsen tribal band. Another thing that we've done is we've recently renovated Sneakmoktok, which is a Mutsun word meaning place of the children. We renovated this in collaboration with the tribe and the Natural Reserve System and Environmental Studies to create a really nice outdoor classroom space for students and the tribe to gather for learning efforts as well. But in addition to, guest lecturing and courses and stuff like that, we are also involved with the Amamundsen through the relearning program in projects that are outside of, the Arboretum fence lines, so to speak. So in 2018, we finished up a multi-year study at Pinnacles National Park, which studied the effects of indigenous stewardship on basketry plants and restoration of native annual species in degraded grasslands. Most recently, we've been collaborating with Joji Muramoto, who is a visiting scholar from Japan. He's going to be researching traditional management practices of native geophyte populations on campus. If you don't know, geophytes are often known as Indian potatoes or wild onions that were an important food source for California Native peoples prior to contact. And this is a project that is part of a larger project entitled Agroecology, Sustainable Food Production and Landscape Conservation and International Collaborations between Japan and the Americas, which is funded by the Sumitomo Foundation of Japan. We've also recently been working with Professors Miriam Greenberg and Professor Chris Benner on a project that looks at the social, cultural, and environmental impacts of new development pressures in our region, including fire risk, habitat fragmentation for wildlife, and the potential loss of access to land stewarded and held sacred by the Amamundsen. So this grant is currently being written. We've been collaborating with Miriam on the writings of that grant pertaining to the Amamundsen. And so it's a pending grant award. We've been also collaborating with the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, the mall downtown, on a garden exhibit highlighting traditional ecological knowledge and what's known as kincentricity. Kincentricity is a word used to describe Native American or indigenous people's relationships to land. And what it means is that indigenous people viewed plants and animals as kin, as relatives, and they were tasked by the Creator to care for them. And we also have an ongoing collaboration with Pie Ranch and the Amamundsen Native Garden up there. So these are all the ways, or the different ways most recently that we've been collaborating with the tribe as part of the Amamundsen Relearning Program. And so where do I see, or we see the relearning program moving in the future, where, we are at a really good spot being attached to the university to engage in these kind of re-educational programs of some land trust. One thing that we would love to have happen with the proper funding is to bring back the work and learn gatherings. What made these gatherings so special was they were relatively casual and kind of low key. There was a relatively small attendance, which really created this really wonderful sense of community where people could, engage in experiential learning, but also interact with tribal members, which most people don't often get to do. So in addition to continuing to create our gardens, our native gardens, the California conservation gardens, and filling them with culturally important plants that the Amamundsen can harvest. I see us in the future engaging in these types of research and educational components of the Amamundsen Land Trust. The work and learn gatherings too will also give tribal members the opportunity to become teachers as well. When these work and learn gatherings first started, we brought in other teachers that had the knowledge, but now, given the the growth of the Amamutsan Land Trust and the relearning activities of the tribe, tribal members are now ready to do the teaching. And so these types of small gatherings will give them the opportunity to teach and practice their teaching and public speaking skills. And so with that, that's a brief snapshot of the Amamutsan Relearning Program, past, present, and future. Thank you for joining us today, and I will turn it back over to Susan.
All right. Thank you so much, Rick. That was great. I knew some of that, but I learned a lot more. That was fantastic. So that's about it for our program today. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for electing the board. If you feel like you'd like to join the board, because we could always use more folks to help us, please let me or Katie know. I also urge you to go and check out the status of the silent auction. You don't want to miss out on those wonderful things that you've been bidding on. And please stay tuned for the entirety of Aidid Medina's love letter to the Arboretum. And please take good care of yourselves, stay safe and well, and hopefully soon we'll see you back at the Arboretum. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good evening, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you, joining me for this year's membership meeting. My name is Aidid Medina, and I am a longtime supporter of the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum and visitor, frequent visitor all of the time. I practically live here. I also happen to be a writer. I'm a poet, and I practice floricanto, which is a meditative form of poetry that is a tradition of my ancestors, and it's ceremonial. So it's more than a craft of writing. It is a spiritual ceremony that happens when I create or I share spoken word with a group of people or with nature. I often come here and write and do a little poetry reading for the trees and the hummingbirds. Hummingbirds happen to be very sacred symbols of our loved ones who have passed on, our ancestral spirits in Floricanto. And so I was very lucky and honored to be hosted by the home tribe of these lands, the Amamutsan. Last year, we held a beautiful Floricanto event, and that was a life-changing moment for me. It deepened my connection to the Arboretum. So I'm happy and humbled, and with all of this gratitude, I'd like to share some poems with you. It is the time of healing. It is the time of reconnecting with our ancestors. It is the time that we lay out paths and floors of marigolds and pasuchi to welcome them home. We call their spirits home to our embrace. Flor. I found the white feathers, picked them up off the floor to hold them dear to my chest beneath my blouse. I found the feathers gone. I found myself with life, with song. I bloomed. From me came light. From beneath my serpent skirt, with Silabochli, from the nothing, everything is born. Thank you. So, of course, if you all remember the white hummingbird, very influential in my writing, as well as, white hummingbird being a very big part of my ancestral stories and spiritual stories. I want to share a poem with you, a healing poem dedicated to all of you who went through the despair of the fires and are now working to building their lives over again and dealing with the anxieties that we all dealt with in those very fearful moments. But it is a time to come together. This poem was written in Spanish. It is an homage to I Remember You, Amanda, but I'm going to read it to you and translate it for you into English right on the spot. So, I remember you, dear soul. The road darkened with smoke. Your heart in flames, the whole world in flames from the inside out. I remember you running to find your daily bread in the fields of strawberries. I remember to the memory of his hands, your father's hands, for him, for him. The prayers have become shorter as you try to get to him. There is no rest in the fields, and the children are all alone while their parents fall apart, picking baskets and buckets, baskets and buckets, their lungs full of smoke and need in their bellies. They must return to the smoke and to the sickness, and I run past them in the mist of the sea fog. I run past them to find him. Oh, my California, my beloved flowered land. My heart is calling me to the fields once again for him, for him. So thank you that poem right there is offered in the spirit of healing, that we may embrace each other and everything that we're going through together. And I'd like to close off with a poem that I wrote specifically for the hummingbirds here in the Arboretum. And I know some of you will probably identify with some of these feelings. I need a day to chase hummingbirds and walk through rows of marigolds. I need a day of banksia flowers and ocean waters. My shoulders and thoughts crumble for wanting this, eternal for wanting this, in flesh and bone. There is a white hummingbird in your garden that makes pigments his feathers cannot keep. And there is a woman who makes love she cannot touch. In the plants of the Arboretum, I am lying on my belly and on my heartbeat. I turn over on my back in between tall stalks of orange and yellow blooms, these fresh green hallucinations of conversations we have never had are crawling all over me. These, like the hummingbirds, are looking for the sweet parts to drink. This is the perfect ground. I feel footsteps approaching, footsteps departing through my spine. I am watching the sky for a blur, ghost bird, for a sign of you in any of these gardens, anywhere in these in-between. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you visit often.
And with that, we're going to say goodbye to all of you joining us today. Thank you so much.